welcome back.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. I'm Howie Howard from the Long Play Listening Party, and we are. Oh, Nate just made it back. Nate, I was gonna start to make a running joke of the thing that Jared started, where we start the show before you're back, but you made it. So
I told you.
He was waiting outside the door.
Yep. That was a tight 3 minutes. Well done. You time traveled 1 week.
It was all to make you look.
I wear the same outfit.
All to make you look
every day.
We're all looking great. And I told Brent I had a question at the end of last week's episode. We're talking about mixing. And Brent, you were talking about how you like to build a mix up from scratch. And so I just wanted to ask, like, sort of, and maybe that is its own answer, but like, what is your approach to mixing, right? Because there's lots of different schools of thought. Some people start with a kick drum, then snare or bass, and go element by element. Some people use like the pink noise trick and like mix into pink noise until you can just hear everything, and that's a rough balance. Nate's experimented with that.
It's effective. It really does shorten and make it less. You don't have to think so much about it because you have a rough balance of where each of everything and across the frequency spectrum should be, and then it's just making the decisions of how what type of where you need to focus.
Yeah, and I've really maybe only ever once or twice mixed something that wasn't my own project. So I'm always like adjusting levels as I'm tracking myself basically and kind of mixing as I go because it's my own thing and I need to hear a rough balance in order to lay down the next part. So that's all to say there's lots of different schools of thought. Whatever works for anybody is good. But Brent, like, what works for you? Do you have a way you like to approach a mix?
Yeah, I mean, if I've got a mix, so it's a stereo mix, then the way I want to approach it is to listen to it through my console, through the pre's, through the bus compressor, through the EQ, and then whatever I put past the EQ that I think it needs to maybe pull certain parts of the instrumentation out that are not being as easily conveyed, and get the mix built through that chain, and then monitor it through the tape machine if I'm going to monitor it through the tape machine. So what I'm listening to is as close of an approximation of what it's going to sound like through everything when I drop it to tape. Mm-hmm. And if I'm going to tape. And if not, then just monitor through the from a DAW through the console, and then listen to the mix bus and just mix it through that. And then usually then I have to go listen to it a couple other places to decide what I think about it. In fact, the more and more I want to listen to it like the next day, right. And that rather than that night. And I like to think that I'm gonna make like 3 revisions, before I start to think that it's right or approaching right. But I gotta admit, I haven't mixed the pink noise. I gotta try this. That's probably what I'm going to do.
I will try. I'll find for the show notes, and anyone who's interested, I'll try and find. I mean, I'm sure there's a million websites and videos.
I know of a couple.
Yeah, if you have one you like, send it over, and I'll put that one. But then, okay, so
I mean, Brent, you probably have, your ears are probably experienced enough that it might not be as much of a advantage or effective for you, but I found it very helpful for me when I really wanted to make sure my balance was at least close. And you can find is it frequency curves from tracks that you like, and for the most part they're somewhat similar. And I just found that when I mixed with Pink Noise, I was closer to that than when I was just kind of free balling it. Call it that.
Yes, I got it. No, I think that'd be very useful, and I have a generator on the console too, so I can do that.
That makes it real easy.
Yeah.
Do you have? What about Brent? Like, so I'm in a band, and we've done a song or an album, and I'm sending you, my multi-tracks, 40 tracks of drums and guitars and synthesizers and whatever. How do you like to approach that?
That I like to try to really open up everything I've learned from practice. Check everything, know what I've got as far as the individual tracks. And if I'm missing something, ask. Because sometimes you just miss a track, but I like to take every track and lay it out across my console if I can. I actually fairly often get tracks that have more than 24 for my main channels, so I have to get creative, but that's easy to do in the studio. But what I tend to do is lay everything out to one of my main 24 channels, and then send it to one of my 8 buses that are automatable. And so I'll group tracks. I'll try to think about what tracks I want to have VCA fader automation on, and then send them to the first 8 that go to my dual layer control section. And then I'll send, usually those go to directly relate to my subgroups, but some things can be sent to the subgroup that don't go to the dual layer control section. But I try to end it up where I can draw down any part of the mix with the 8 subgroup faders, or draw down any part of the mix with the 8 automatable faders. Lately, that's been my approach to maximize it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that's super. Automation, even in the box, is like a super underrated tool, I think. Like, just I was working on some of my synth stuff just yesterday or the day before, and I had noticed a section that was hitting something in my mastering plugins too hard, and distorting and just saturating too much. And I went in, and it took less than a dB of automation to just duck that part down a little bit, and the bad distortion went away.
Oh yeah.
And those little automation moves are everything.
Yeah.
Man, Logic is my dog choice right now, and I'm sure there's well, I would think there's something similar, but I am running Pro Tools in the studio because there's a couple projects that I need to have that so I can work it. I'm bouncing stems down and I'm gonna work back in Logic. But the clip gain in Pro Tools is pretty badass.
Yes.
Because like all you need to do is just pick that little section of audio, take that clip gain down a little bit, and you can even things out super quick, super easy.
Yeah,
so
Reaper
like
has that too, and I love that too. Yep, I use that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that reminds me.
But yeah, I mean, the same thing can be kind of accomplished for the volume automation too. So.
What's it remind you of, Brent?
Oh, I read this fabulous article about how you can use clip gain automation in Pro Tools to. I need to try to remember the way that where the article was coming from, but it was basically to where you would be achieving a similar effect as compressing the audio, but by drawing in. I think there's actually a button in Pro Tools where you can right click and hit print gain automation in Pro Tools, right? And so it will print you a track that essentially is like a perfect compressed track, only it subtracts the noise floor, I think. Because instead of boosting everything, you're boosting from the clip automation, I believe. You can Google it, but it sounded like a really cool thing to be using Pro Tools for.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's been a while since I heard of a innovative Pro Tools feature. So.
Yeah, I don't know if it was intentional, but I think it's definitely a cool article about how you could really.
I mean, I think that it's improved. I don't want to pay for it month by month, and I've always thought, and it's probably just a bias, and I probably need to keep my mind open and try it out. But it always seemed very clunky to me. MIDI implementation. I mean, plug-in automation, everything. Like you can, like it, especially in Logic, it just seems like it's just accessible. Like it's intuitive. You know what you need to do. And Pro Tools, I know it does the same thing, and I've done it since I figured out how to do it. But the Warriors would just say, like, read the fucking manual. But,
right.
But I'm not gonna. I mean, that manual is probably, what is it, like hundreds of pages?
I'm sure. Well, the official Reaper manual is super long too.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to start a whole thing. It's whatever gets the job done. But I was trying to be nice. I mean, we've taken our shots at Pro Tools over the years, and I was trying to point out, hey, here's a cool, even if it's a hack, great little Pro Tools feature. Maybe that's cool.
I mean, it's the what I'm using now. I think it's Studio. It might be Ultimate. It's free for 30 days, so I'm not paying for it right now. I'm hoping to get a lot of stuff kind of out of the way. I think there's a project that's probably going to take another month or two. So I'll have to kind of
get that extension.
Yeah, but it's not bad. I know that Worse and I tried to do some of the Avid Link stuff, and just never worked. It was always something always was wrong. We could never get it to do exactly what it's supposed to do, and he may know more about that now. But and speaking of Royce, Brent. I know that he has been doing a lot with immersive sound treatment, and in the studio he's got a control room and a vocal tracking room, just small, and then they've got a big kind of soundstage room, and they put a lot of work into it, and now they're kind of getting into that immersive audio space. which I don't know if you know a whole lot about it, but I would love to get Royce on at some point, and probably you too, to kind of brainstorm on that stuff and have, because I would like to have an explanation. I think Royce would do a really good job at kind of breaking it down, but
I would love that too. I think about that too.
Yeah.
That's the next step. That's the next level, I think.
Yep.
So when
but it's hard to have a space that you can that actually is made to do that. But
yeah, so I would love to find out about that.
I'll add that to the idea list. Introduction to immersive audio with Royce and Brent.
Yes.
I'm saying it out loud like that, so
plug-in?
that when I edit the show, I remember to go and add it to the list.
Some of Logic has that binaural pan stuff, which is I use it a lot, just because it
has the what?
Binaural panning. So there's I'm forgetting the terms, but you've got your regular panning, your stereo panning. You could move, and if you got your, mono tracks, it's just placement, right? And then the binaural has it where you can move the audio. It's sort of up and down and to the sides, and you can automate that too. And I also have some 3D and sort of pseudo spatial plugins that I'd like to experiment with. But that having that just experience would
I feel like such a jerk that I didn't come down to go to the it was like the 25th annual Midwest Electroacoustic Festival at Kansas City, Kansas Community College, right?
Okay, yeah.
I can't remember what it was that, why I, crapped out.
I was wondering, because I know you talked about it, and I was like, oh man, that would be cool. And then
yeah, that was what really got me hooked on that whole idea. Because I ran the sound with, when I was in school there in 2001 maybe, and those were the third or fourth years or whatever, if this is the 25th annual one. But they do 8.1 surround sound. Well, they probably do 18.1 by now. I haven't even been there.
Does that exist, really? I've heard of 9.1.
Oh, you can do anything. You got the chords.
I guess so. That's
back in 2000, they did 8.1 just with 2 ADATs.
Wow.
They would just have artists, matrix their songs to or maybe even. Yeah, I think it was 2 ADATs, maybe for left and right. That probably makes sense. But anyhow, that's how I know we used ADATs back then, but there was 8.1 back then. But there was phenomenal movement, So.
So
I think
Nate, go ahead.
I hate to cut you off, but I think so we're having a thunderstorm right now in Lawrence, and my lights have flickered a couple times, and I'm afraid if I don't stop the recording and save the show, I might actually lose everything.
Okay.
So we can stay on the call and keep chatting, but I think for the sake of the edit, let's let all the listeners and watchers go for this week. We'll be back next week with more show. Listeners, if you want to reach out to Brent to potentially mix or master your music, you can find him on Instagram at rentasynthr. That's rentasynthr. Link in the description, or email him at rentasynthr@gmail.com. Until next week, this has been the Long Play Listening Party. Later, everybody.
Thank you, guys.